Hi everyone, my name is Ross and I am here to talk about what I read. So this is my January wrap up. Again, I'm a little late. It's nearly the end of February, but I wanted to get this out before February is over so that I can do a February wrap up nice and on time. And January, count-wise, was a pretty good reading month for me. I read 7 books in January, and my goal is 5, so I thought that was a pretty good success, especially because I read all of them within the first 3 weeks. My last book that I was reading in January bled into February because it was not going so well, so you'll see that in the February wrap up. But I'll just go through these books in order. We'll just give quick thoughts on them. I won't get into my February stuff because I'm already well underway with it, but I think for future wrap ups, I'll talk about next month's reading plans or ideas at the end. So this one will just be a nice quick run through of the 7 books that I read in January of 2021. So unfortunately, the first book that I read in January was my least favorite, and maybe it's one of my least favorite books of all time. And that's really surprising and disappointing considering it's so beautiful, and that is Bloom by Kevin Panetta and Savannah Ganesho. I'm not positive, but I think Kevin Panetta is the story and Savannah Ganesho is the art. And the art is beautiful. That is what saved this book for me. Like it is really pretty. I wasn't massive on the coloration because I get the constraints of things cost a lot of money to print in color, but I thought that like the just blue, it's like if you're already going to print it in color, just make it full color because the metaphor for the blue wasn't doing it for me. But the drawings themselves were beautiful. I love the art style. I just could not stand a single person that was in this book. Every character drove me nuts. And I don't know if that's just like a unique to me experience. Like maybe these people were like hitting too many boxes of people in my real life that drive me nuts. But the main character for me was insufferable. His family was insufferable. The boyfriend is better, but like he even had moments where I was like, dude. There's a scene in the book, they know each other for like barely any time, and there's a scene in the book where he like goes to visit his friends and family for like 5 days, and he has like a meltdown. That's weird. Like if you're gonna do something like that in a book, that needs to be like the point, in my opinion. Is like that was a weird way to behave. Maybe you should address those kinds of concerns. But no, it was just kind of treated as like a normal thing. And I thought that I'm like, dude, these people are toxic as hell. And his family's all toxic. His sister at the very beginning of the book, his sister like moves out because she gets married, and then he wants to move out, and she like lectures him for being selfish for wanting to move. And I'm like, oh, you are just like people I know in real life. I swear to God, I did not like it at all. If you can tell, except for the art, but the story, no. The story is about just like the scrawny one. This one, his family owns a bakery in like New Jersey, and that's like it. Like this guy just moves to town and gets a job at the bakery, and they just like have a little like late teen, early 20s gay romance, and it didn't work for me in the slightest. So we'll move on from there to the second book I read this month, which is Himself by Jess Kidd. I read this because this has been on my shelf for a long, long time. I got it used maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it just sat there for the entire duration. And then one of my friends on Goodreads, or one of my friends real life on Goodreads, said that she read Things in Jars by Jess Kidd and gave it 5 stars. And I was like, oh, I have a Jess Kidd, and she loved that Jess Kidd. And this is my friend who read Rebecca at about the same time I did, and we had the same opinion. So I was like, oh, I'll give this a try and see if I like the author. And I loved this book. If you watched my best of 2020, you know one of maybe my thing is hilarious old women, like hilarious, like just like little crotchety old women. This book has one of the best crotchety old women that I've ever read. She is so funny. She's like this long retired actress in like her 80s. And this book follows Mahoney. It takes place in Ireland. And it follows Mahoney, who is like the son of a woman who used to live in this small town in Western Ireland like a long time ago. And she was like murdered or disappeared when he was like a baby. Or so, I don't know. So some people think. And he like comes to the town to like figure out like what happened to her because he was raised in like foster care and stuff. and he gets like a letter from one of the nuns who raised him at his like orphanage, and she's like, you need to go to the town and figure out what happened. So he goes to the town and teams up with this amazing old woman to try and like figure out what happens. Trigger warning for like sexual assault and a bit of pedophilia in this. There's some icky backstory with like how like his what happened to his mother. But aside from that ickiness, and it's intentional because it's like kind of the point of the book, uh, it's just about him like trying to solve like what happened to her. Where'd she go? It's a little magical realism, because he can see ghosts. That's like the big thing, like the big, not a twist because you know from the beginning, but he can see ghosts, and so he tries to go to town and figure out what happened. And I just loved the people, like the old woman, Mahoney, his love interest. I just thought that they were all such great characters. They were so much fun to read with. Like, I don't think this is a perfect book. This is, I think, maybe her debut. Um, and it's not a perfect book. Like, I wouldn't give it 5 stars for objectively, but subjectively, my reading experience, I just had so much fun with this. It's 5 stars. I will definitely be reading Things in Jars soon. On my friend's recommendation, because she gave it 5 stars. She said that one's also pretty trigger warning. There's like some body horror in that, but I will probably get that on Kindle. But yeah, this was a great little find. If you see it, pick it up. The third book I read in January is the 8th book in the Flavia de Luce series. I mentioned the 5th and 6th ones in my best of 2020 video. I'm up to 8. If you can see right there, 9 and 10, the green and pink, they're waiting for me for this spring. I'm very excited but very sad to finish. But the 8th one is called Thrice the Brinded Cat Hath Mewed. They're all by Ellen Bradley. It's the 8th book in a series, and this one deals with some serious family issues, so I don't want to get like I'm not going to get too deep into like what this is about. If you've read the Flavia de Luce series, if you're interested in the Flavia de Luce series, I will recommend that wholeheartedly as a whole piece of work because I absolutely love it. This is not my favorite. I think, honestly, if I had to rank all of them, like that I've read so far from 1 to 8, this might be 7th. This wasn't very good for a Flavia novel because I think that it felt like this felt very similar to the 6th one because it's a more of a family-driven one. The 6th one is very like driven by like the family drama and the family dynamics, and this one felt like it was trying to do the same thing, but it just wasn't as successful as the 6th one, and it just it couldn't decide if it wanted to be more about the mystery, more about the family drama. So, not my favorite, but that's okay. I still have a good time. I think I still gave it 3.5, maybe 4, probably 3.5. I think the first one and this one are equally kind of like, but that's all right. I'm really excited to continue. It's also, if you can't tell, it's a little Christmas novel. It takes place over Christmas. It's like she goes to deliver like a note to just some carpenter in town, and he's like found dead in his house, like hung upside down from his door. So it's kind of an interesting setup, but it's not like the most interesting. So, but you know, if you're gonna read a whole series, there's gonna be 1 or 2 that are just like not quite there. That's okay. All right, and now my 4th book that I read in January on Books Like Woe's wholehearted recommendation is Ring Shout by P. Djeli Clark. This is a novella, and this was a lot of fun. I have never given novellas, I don't think, much more than a 4 because I just don't think that they can like scratch an itch that I like from books. Like they don't dive deep enough. So I pretty much always give novellas like a 4 or less, and this was a 4, but it was really good. It was really fun. This follows a group of black people in Georgia in like a fantastical version of like the 20s, where Ku Klux Klan members, some of them are like demons, and so this like group of people hunts the Ku Klux Klan members that are demons, and they like the demons like foster hate to like try and get like real people to join the Ku Klux Klan. So it was a lot of fun. It was short. It's just about them like, you know, taking on like a big demon. There's some weird scenes in this that have to do with like, I don't know, like her entering different like planes of existence and stuff. So it's definitely fantastical. It is not a like more, I would not say it's a more realistic fantastical realism. It is pretty fantastical. But it's like fun, violent, where it's like if you just like them like, you know, hacking through demons, I think you'll like this book. and I am really excited to read more from him. I am interested in trying his Jin. I can't remember what that series is called, like the Jin series. Um, and I hope that there's a follow up to this one because this totally could be a series, and this would be like a fun like little series of novellas to just like pick up when they come out. All right, the fifth book I read has become one of my all time favorite books. I didn't just sob at the end of this book like once, but I like sobbed again like 4 hours later when I was just thinking about the end of the book, and I had to like stop what I was doing and just like cry because it was just so good. And that is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is a generational saga of a Korean family who moved to Japan. I think it's World War II, and it's just like dealing with like the racism that they experience as Korean people in Japan. You know, Japan is a big colonizer, especially back in the day. So when the book starts, it's like Korea under Japanese rule, and then you follow like the family as they move to Japan, but then like Japan no longer has Korea anymore after a certain point. So they like are constantly battling with like, should we move back to Korea now that it's not part of Japan? Are we like stuck here? And like it just like the family dynamics just got to me by the end. It really made me think about just like appreciating people in your life and like what it means to like what showing love to people that are important in your life really is. You can show love for people in your life in many different ways. It does not have to be in like prescribed ways that we like associate, like saying I love you, or you know, just like giving somebody. It's like you can show love through just like support. And I just thought the family in this is so incredible. The main character is really interesting, but I really liked her children. Pretty much everybody in this book is great except for like the last. I liked all the POVs except for the very last person, um, who's like the main character's grandchild. Just because I thought his stuff was boring and it was like really quick, and I was just like, I feel like that part it probably could have ended just like a little bit earlier. But the actual ending just destroyed me. I was literally just sitting in bed like I can't do it. And this is not a good like summary of this book. This book is like so much. Like it is about so much. It is, I mean, it's long. It's like 500 pages. Yeah, it's like 500 pages. It's just like a really good story, and I would wholeheartedly recommend you pick it up if you're feeling something like historical or just like familial. Like this is the one. And then I read my first Kindle book because I got a Kindle for Christmas. I read my first book on Kindle, so I don't have the actual book, so I'll hold up the good old Kindle. And that was 1984 by George Orwell. I read that as a reread because I had to read it for school. And I remember in school I was like, this is my favorite. Like this is my favorite book that I read in high school. Like so I was like, I'm gonna test myself and see if I should reread it and if I still like it. And boy, did I fail that test because I did not like 1984 upon reread. It was repetitive, dry, and preachy. And I didn't like any of it. Like he tread the same ground so many times with like the rules of the world. It was just like, stop telling me the same thing 100 times. I don't need to know like how people like waiting in line at a cafeteria. I don't need to see like 6 scenes of you waiting in line at a cafeteria for food. I don't need it. It's not doing anything anymore. Like pointing out all the different like, oh, you can't get that anymore. Okay, you said we couldn't get that kind of food anymore like 40 pages ago. Like, and then you said it 20 pages ago. So just like stop saying the same thing over and over and over again. There's like this part where he's like reading a textbook in the book, and you are reading the textbook, and it never ends. All the chapters in this book are so short, and that one was like 50 pages, and I was like, how am I still reading this? It was just a straight up history of how the world came to be. I don't need to know every detail. Isn't that kind of defeat the purpose? Isn't that kind of like eliminate the whole concept of the book of like posturing, like what if life was like this? Don't sit down and tell me every single event that happened in history that led it to be this way, because that like ruins the point of like posturing. You can't. You gotta put it down. I just no. It was boring. It was so boring. The book was like 3 stars up until that point because I was like I was like kind of having fun, but then it was just like I was sick of the repetition. But then once I got to that textbook chapter, I was like, I am so done with this. Like, this is so boring. It will not end. So, yeah, that was 1984. I ruined pretty much the only book from high school that I liked. Don't know why I did that to myself. I read it because it was free. Because you get Kindle Unlimited free for a few months with buying a Kindle. And so I was like, what's on Kindle Unlimited? That was the most popular book. And I had been thinking for a long time, like, I should reread 1984 and see if I still like it. It's probably a bad choice, but now it showed me that I didn't remember, like, anything about it. So I liked, like, rereading it and like, being like, oh, I was totally misremembering, like, that whole part of the book. Like, that it did not go that way. So, yeah. I bet you anything I liked it so much in high school because I probably skipped that chapter. I can almost guarantee you that at the time I was probably like I probably got like 3 pages into it, saw how long it was, and I was like, I'll just skip past this because it's clearly just like this. And so I was probably like, yeah, this book is great. No. And then the last book I read was probably the book I have the least to say about, and that is At Bertram's Hotel by Agatha Christie. This is a Miss Marple book. It's the 11th, so it's the third to last. I don't know if there's like a Trent Ultimate, if that's a word. Um, but it is it's just, I mean, it was fun. This is a 60s book for her, and I've heard a lot of people say that, like, once you get to, like, the 60s, Agatha Christie kind of, like, falls off. Like, her quality starts dipping. But I've read 3 books from the 60s by her. I can't remember the third one, but I know I read Endless Night and this one. And I really liked all 3. I thought that they had a very interesting vibe. Agatha Christie writes, like, this very... Like, once she hits, like, in the 60s, she starts writing, like, about the young people and how, like, the young people act. And I was just like, it's not, like, too condescending or anything. It's just, like, kind of funny to me to, like, think of the 60s as, like, the young people. Like, it was interesting. It was entertaining. The plot for this one isn't that, like, deep. It's just, like, um, Miss Marple, like, wants to stay at a hotel she stayed at as a child because the whole point of the hotel is that they, like, keep it looking like the early 1900s so that, like, all these old biddies will, like, come and stay there. Like, that's their market. And so she, like, goes to stay there, but then, like, somebody's murdered, and it's kind of like, oh, the hotel wasn't, like, as nice as I thought it was because, you know, bad things can still, like, reach these kinds of places. So, interesting commentary on, like, aging. This is, like I said, this is the 11th. So Miss Marple is also, like, getting really old at this point because she's already old at the beginning. That's, like, her thing. But then as time ensues, she's, like, even older. So, yeah, it was fun. It's like middle tier Christie. I liked the 60s vibe a lot. It follows, like, race car drivers and stuff, and it's like, okay, that's interesting, but I don't have just, like, a whole lot to say about it because it's an Agatha Christie. I read them for fun. They're, like, nice little fillers I can read in, like, a day or two. So those are the 7 books that I read in January. I have read 3 books in February so far. I'm currently working on my 4th. Although I'm working through it slowly, I'm in, like, a tad of a slump. I would like to at least hit 5 because I'll definitely finish that book by the end of February. I don't know if I'll be able to squeeze in a 5th. I'm hoping. I want to hit 5 every time. I feel like that's a good amount of content, you know. I want to, like, have things to talk about, but I also don't want to, like, force myself to read more than I, like, enjoy. So, yeah, thank you for watching. I will see you again soon. Bye.